All right, I'm going to call the Neary Building Committee meeting to order for Monday, October 30th. It is 7:33 p.m. We have 5 of our 7 voting members present here tonight. A lot of our ex officio members and our OPM team as well. Our first item of business is approval of outstanding meeting minutes for the full committee, and this is going to be for October 2nd of 2023. Any questions or comments on those? For those of you that are on subcommittees, which is everyone, we will continue to forward them as Mariana gets through them. And we'll talk a little bit about process going forward, but just need to make sure that each subcommittee is approving them at their next meeting to the extent available, which they have been available. And if we somehow get out of sync, we can use the full meetings also to approve them, but we'll need to make sure that that subcommittee is posted. So it just creates a little more of a challenge. So that's how we're going to try to do the cadence moving forward. So I will move that we accept the full Neary Building Committee meeting minutes as presented for October 2nd of 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Jason, I'm tired. What are you saying that the subcommittees will approve their own minutes? But you're not saying that the full committee has to approve the same minutes. Okay.
No, I'm just saying if by chance we get off sequence with meetings and need to post them, we can put them as part of our agenda. It's just not the preferred route to go.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'm seeing none, so we will do a roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Kathy?
Abstain, I wasn't there.
Andrew?
Aye.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm aye as well, so that is a 401 vote, if I got that right. We're going to run the rest of the meeting is each subcommittee has met at least once since the last full building committee meeting. So what I thought I would do is have each chair of the subcommittee summarize what you discussed, and to the extent that you have items or action items for us to act on as a full committee, feel free to advance any motions. And obviously the OPM team here is here to support you in any way, shape, or form, or you can just delegate your time to them as well. But if I organized it in such a way that we're going to start with designer selection, then go to finance, and then go to communications. So, Roger, it's all yours.
Okay, I'll just do a brief summary, and Jim, feel free to jump in to elaborate on anything you think it would be helpful to have elaborated for the full committee here. But we primarily talked through what was going to happen next, which is that Skanska is going to be, well, okay, so we have 4 candidates. And Skanska is going to summarize information about those candidates, lay that out in a spreadsheet, I believe, and is going to get that information to the subcommittee. I'm guessing we talked about this week, early this week, but hopefully still this week. The other specific item that we talked about related to summarizing, if you will, some information about the candidates is the reference checks. And we determined the best way to approach that, and it was pretty much a uniform agreement among the subcommittee and also Skanska. Skanska would basically perform the reference checks. That way we would get, I guess I'm going to say, kind of an even, I don't want to say even-minded, but basically a kind of a level, a consistent level of checking. We had some other options. We could split them up. We could split up the candidates. We could split up the questions. But I think everyone agreed that it made the most sense to have Skanska go ahead and perform those. Now, They will also be providing us some summary information about those reference checks. And it doesn't preclude any or all members from doing additional reference checks, follow-up reference checks. But I guess we'll get to that when we come to it. We are going to be meeting again as a subcommittee in, I believe, 2 weeks, on Monday at 7. And our charge is to get through the the submissions of the candidates by then. I suspect if other people are doing what I'm doing, we're waiting at least a couple of days to get the summary information from Skanska. And I guess we'll find out what folks think at that meeting. We talked about the fact that there is an MSBA meeting on December 5th, which is going to be the meeting. It's a virtual meeting. It's going to be the meeting that in which the designer is selected. I know that we have 2 votes. I know that I think the superintendent, town administrator, myself as a representative of the school committee, and Jason as chair of the full committee are planning to attend that meeting. And again, we have 2 votes. I don't recall how many total votes are being cast. Someone else probably knows that. Jim, do you know that? Or is anyone else what percentage are we?
Yeah, so MSBA has 10
Okay.
and the district has 2. Yep.
And you said the district has
2.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. So we're, doing my math, what, about 15-16% of that?
That's interesting. So you're saying that they could recommend somebody different than the subcommittee?
Oh, absolutely. Now
They're going to do their own vetting and interviewing?
they actually go through a parallel process that we're going through entirely independently of this committee. So.
And you won't know till you get there which one they like?
How they're going to vote? I don't know that they're going to know how they're going to vote until they actually have the vote. But that could be a bit naive. Jim, do you know how that works?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. They review all the RFS responses, and when you get to that meeting, they go through each respondent has their own item on the agenda. So that's why it's like we discussed in the subcommittee, it's important that they do lean on the district as far as who the district's preference is. So that's why you really just have to go into that meeting with a strong case as to why we want to vote for a particular designer. So, but yeah, it won't be finalized until that meeting, and actually we cannot rank any of them or anything like that prior to that meeting. And that's a very clear rule with MSBA.
Yeah, that's an important point. I'm sorry I neglected to mention that, but yes, so we go in with our 2. We go in with our 2 votes. We will know who we're going to vote for before we go to that meeting. With our 2
If
votes.
you can't rank them, how do you know who you're going to vote for?
And we will have a meeting. We're going to be talking about it in an open meeting.
Yeah, and you can have a preference. You just can't rank 1, 2, 3, 4. You can definitely if there's some commonality as to who we want to discuss. But yeah, when you go into that meeting, you can't have them ranked, but you can have a preference.
Follow on to that, Kathy. I mean, it is.
So
it is what it is.
Is it the subcommittee that will do the recommendation? And then 2 people from the subcommittee are going forward?
Well, 4 people. Yeah. So the subcommittee is going to have their recommendation. 4 people will attend. I guess I'm actually 4 people will attend the the MSBA meeting, I'm the only subcommittee member that will attend, but I'm really attending as a school committee member. I'm looking over at Greg. Question, comment, Greg, I'm seeing. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have recognized you. I guess I'm just doing a presentation. Okay.
No,
Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, no,
Sorry, Jason.
this is your part of the agenda. I think.
So Roger, I just had a clarification on the date. I believe the MSBA meeting is on the 13th, not the 5th. It's shifted a couple times. I just wanted
It,
to
you know,
clarify the date.
I
Jim.
just may have
It's
missed it.
yeah, it's December 5th. Yeah,
It is the 5th.
designer selection panel. Yeah, we're meeting again on the 13th. We're meeting again on the 13th for the subcommittee meeting, November 13th. But we were originally shooting for that November, that second meeting in November, which I think was the 20th. But yeah, we are definitely on the December 5th agenda.
So I have a clarifying comment to the superintendent's clarifying comment to confirm that it is on December 5th. The MSBA meeting.
And you have a time for that, just for everyone knows, so everyone knows.
I
Yeah,
don't.
it's at 8:30 a.m.
Okay.
Is it the 5th or the 13th? The 5th?
It's December 5th.
Okay. I thought Greg said it was the 13th.
Well, our next subcommittee meeting is going to be November 13th,
Okay.
2 weeks from today.
So Jim, is it more likely than not that the MSBA would want to go along with the 2 votes from the district?
It's always possible for them to not, but in my experience, 9 times out of 10, they go with the district's preference. There's been a couple instances where they don't, and they had their reasoning for that. But if the district goes in with a strong case for a particular respondent, I would say it's more likely than not that they would. But it is a panel vote, so anything could happen.
So 7 out of 12 have to vote for one?
Correct.
Okay.
Seven out of 12, right. I think that's all I have. And Jim, did I miss anything?
No, I think you hit everything. Yeah.
Mark, did I miss anything? Or anyone, did I miss anything? All right.
Yeah, we're working through the that information for the review documents that we actually submit to MSBA. We also sent over the RFSs once they came in over to the MSBA. So like Roger said, it's a parallel review. They need a minimum of 4 weeks with them in order for them to do their review. I think for respondents, the respondents that we did get, I think they're all capable firms, and I think we'll just kind of have to dive into each response and see which one makes the most sense for our project. So, but yeah, I think you hit everything else, Roger.
All right. Then it sounds like my 5 minutes is up.
I should have put a timer up. I didn't give you 5 minutes, but I have two. Hopefully, one's an opinion question for the OPM team, and one's a procedural question. Are you happy with 4? I know you just talked about the quality, but is 4, just give us some context in that compared to other projects of this size that you've seen recently.
So I would say I would have liked to have a couple more in the mix. But Lexington, and we knew that Lexington was hanging out there. There was a couple of firms that we were hoping would submit, but they were wrapped up into that process. So I would say would have been nice to have a couple more, but I think we have good coverage with 4.
Okay. Now, hopefully, an easier question. Procedurally, if members of the Neary Building Committee wanted to attend and listen, it's an open public meeting that the MSBA is holding on that date. Do people usually do that? Because I'm concerned about us having potentially a quorum, and I'm just trying to come up with guidance now of whether we need to stick with the attendees that they require to be there, which is who you mentioned, or if someone was curious and wanted to listen to the live feed, I'm gonna probably have to figure out how to post a meeting like public, even though it would be obviously MSBA controls the agenda and all of that. So what have you seen and experienced? Just because I imagine it's going through someone's head here that's, maybe not even involved with designer selection.
Yeah, it's a public meeting and anybody can sign in. And yeah, I think we've definitely had districts that, a few of the members will sign in as well and just listen. As far as the quorum question, I would defer to you obviously on that. But
I can comment, looking, if I might, looking for anyone, Kathy or Greg. I believe that if you have participants who are attendees and not, if you have people that are attendees and not participants, that would not count as a quorum. Does anyone here want to confirm that?
I'll take it offline with Jim Hegarty, but I'm
Okay.
pretty sure we're going to need to post a notice that there's a possibility of a quorum present at that meeting. We're obviously not going to deliberate or vote on anything, but I think that's probably going to be the safest route. But we'll get a confirmation and give everyone the ability to do what they want to do, and then go from there.
Who is the third member of the selection committee? Subcommittee?
Chris,
Chris.
Chris, Mark Davis, and Roger are the three.
So Jim, at this point, the RFS, it has nothing to do with money, right? It's truly quality. It's who wants to do. So we could end up with the most expensive designer. We don't know. We're not looking at hourly rates and things like that at this point, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's a qualifications-based selection process. That's a great point. A point of clarification. And then once we select, then you go forward with a fee negotiation. Now, after the MSBA meeting, they will be ranked. So if we go to the first, our first preference that was voted and approved by the designer selection panel, the fee negotiations fall through, you go to number 2. And so on and so forth, down to the 4th.
Are we able to say who the 4 were at this point?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it was Lamoureux Pagano, it was Raymond Design Associates, Studio G, and Arrow Street. So again, all capable firms.
Go ahead, Roger.
So Jim, when you said that afterwards we rank them, or they are ranked, so are we talking about the entire group of 12 ranks them, or we rank them and they rank them, or how do the rankings, how do they end up as ranked?
So that's the full designer selection panel.
Okay.
Yep.
So you leave there that day 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
Any other questions on designer selection? All right, Kathy, I'll turn it to you for a finance committee update.
Alrighty. So we met. Andrew, what day did we meet? Well, we met the Monday after October
23rd.
Okay, 20. Okay, so we met on the 23rd. We elected myself as chair. We did not elect a vice chair, though I am going to propose we do that at the next meeting. Our next meeting is November 9th at 7 p.m. So we did get that set. Jim and Jessica joined us, as did Becky and Brian and anybody else. Greg, you weren't at that one. So I think it was just the finance guys. So we really focus mostly on how to approve, what the process is to approve invoices and change orders. So before I get into a big picture is, we don't have a whole lot of invoices to approve right now. We basically have the OPM, hopefully soon to have the designer. So, the mad rush of invoices will come later as far as the project goes. So that part of it is fairly cut and dry. So we decided on the following, and certainly we'll take comments on this if anyone disagrees. In the end, Becky's going to process invoices. It won't be town accountant, it's going to be Becky. The approval is going to be done by the finance subcommittee, the three of us, as long as the invoices that are being generated against a contract don't exceed $100,000, which we wouldn't expect for either the OPM nor the designer. The big ones will come again with the actual construction contract. If there is an invoice more than $100,000, we would bring that to the full NBC to approve. So that is tentatively how we decided to bifurcate the invoices as far as amounts go. So I'll stop there, see if there's any questions as far as that piece of it goes. And Andrew and Mark, feel free to jump in if I say something wrong here.
I would just add, we added a kind of an emergency $10,000 threshold that if Jim needs something approved, and we can't convene the whole committee, then he could get a hold of one of the members to approve it. It's something under 10,000.
I mean, Jason, tell me if you disagree. I just don't see a lot of invoices coming through until we get to the building, except for OPM and designer. I don't know what else they would be.
I completely enforce streamlined process at this point in time, right? You have a finite budget, it's not a small budget, but you're basically going to have two main firms hitting against that. They're all under contract. Obviously, one's rates and hours, one will be probably a fixed fee, Jim, right? For the designer. I'm sure there'll be scope creep discussions at some point, given the type of project, but I fully support everything you outlined, Kathy, with the understanding that we'll probably revisit it closer to actually doing some construction and just make sure it's still fit for purpose moving forward, depending on what we're actually building.
The committee, Jason and I were on last that built a building. We didn't have subcommittees. So we had a little bit different process. Right. Then we talked about change orders, how to approve those. And again, I don't expect many, if any, change orders as far as the OPM and or the designer. So this is kind of a theoretical discussion until we get to the building contract. But if we were to have change orders from either, then we also agreed we should approve those with the same limits. A change order up to $200,000, which is not going to happen with the OPM, I'm pretty sure. At least I hope not, Jim. And then I wouldn't think. I mean, that's a big number for both firms. So I don't think there's going to be any significant change orders in those two. If they are there, they would be less than that. So we agreed, again, subject to anybody having an issue with it on the full committee, that we would approve any change orders with the same limits, up to 100 by the subcommittee and then over 100 by the full committee.
Again, at this point, I don't think you're gonna have to deal with that, but it's nice to have some guidance if you need to.
Yep. So that's pretty much what we did for our inaugural subcommittee meeting.
And procedurally, Becky, you're comfortable with processing the invoices through your office and have a system with Brian to get reimbursed? Because I know it's gonna be a bond at some point.
Yes, Brian and I have already talked about that. We've got a process set up that we use with other accounts, so I am comfortable with that.
Okay. Any comments or questions from other members? I think, Kathy, unless you disagree, I think it's appropriate for a motion to support your proposal. So I'll try to, unless you want to make a motion, I can try to make one too, just to put on record that we're supportive of the finance subcommittee's efforts.
Go right ahead, Jason. We'll see if you listen to me.
Okay. I will move that the Neary Building Committee support the recommendation of the finance subcommittee that during the feasibility phase that they approve all invoices received and also have the authority to act on any change orders up to $100,000.
Second.
Is it 100 for the change orders or 10 for the change orders?
100 for the change orders too.
All right, just making sure.
Yeah, the 10 is just for an emergency one, but there shouldn't be any that ever need to be an emergency.
Okay. All right, so you convene in that instance, if it was 15,000, your intent would be you convene full.
Our intent, there should be nothing that needs,
Yeah.
that even a $2,000 we should convene, because it shouldn't be that immediate that it needs to be approved, but we thought it. With
Fair
the
enough.
48-hour rule, and I guess, yeah, I just didn't want to.
That makes sense. So did I have a second on that?
You did.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call vote. Mark Davis,
Aye.
Kathy,
I,
Andrew,
Aye.
Roger,
Aye.
and I am I as well. So that is a 5-0 vote. Anything else for finance before I move on to communications?
I don't think so. It was a pretty quick meeting.
Okay. The communications subcommittee met about 10 days ago. We reviewed a preliminary plan that definitely has a lot of blanks that need to be filled in. That was drafted by the Skanska team about just an overall communications protocol. We didn't vote on it. It wasn't ready to be voted on. There's definitely some blanks that need to be filled in before we can bring it to the committee, but there's definitely a framework and process. I would say that the main thing, though, that we decided to take action on is we didn't want to wait for the designer selection announcement in December to give an update to the community of where we're at. And so Denise was very helpful and stepped up and has worked with Greg on a first draft. Apparently just became ready right before this meeting. So the communications subcommittee decided, because it's our first communications, we will convene an open meeting to review it, make sure we're all comfortable with it, and then send it out through the normal channels. Obviously, the schools have their own distribution network, but obviously the town does too. And Mark has offered support from the townhouse staff as well to help with their side of the communication. So there will be an update going out. I think we all know it's not going to be highly substantive because obviously we've been in a lot of procurement the last 5 to 6 months, but really want to start to bring this top of mind for the community. I haven't read the documentation yet, so when I read it, I think just from my lens of the town side and what I represent from capital planning, also we'll see if it's appropriate to add any updates on the ongoing discussions with Finn, because people seem to forget. We've shifted some focus there as well. You know, should we have an action taken by the school committee to close the school at some point during this process? And I think that committee's in a great spot to be able to provide recommendations soon as well. So there will be a communication going out. There'll also be another communication planned before the holidays, assuming we have a designer under contract or whenever that happens. And then I think, Jim, the fun begins, right? And that's where a lot of the community engagement will happen, probably over the winter and early spring, in particular the educators as well. If I think back, Roger, to the meetings we had with the Finn and Woodward faculty back in the spring, they definitely seemed very eager to jump in and start offering suggestions. But obviously we need to kind of know where we're headed, get some framework, and obviously the designer plays a critical role in that too, for them to be able to hear it and hopefully action on as much as we can. So that's really what the communications committee discussed. We have a lot of work ahead of us. And in the background, we are working on basically getting our website stood up in the framework there as well, and picking a provider and a lot of logistical things that it would be nice to have in place now, so that when we really do have stuff to update and provide to the community, it's all in place as opposed to scrambling. Any questions or comments?
So it's on our email right now, maybe?
I don't even see it in mine, Greg, actually. But it is going the communication subcommittee will vote and then distribute it. Obviously, I'll give it to the full building committee before it goes out. But the intent is not to come back and have 2 meetings to release something, is that committee would release, especially informational updates for items that have already been discussed in a public meeting. Obviously, we have a controversial topic or a frequently asked question we're struggling with. that would be when I think the communications subcommittee would have to come back to the full building committee to try to chart a path forward. We're obviously not at that point yet. Questions, comments? The final part of communications that we are working on is document sharing. So obviously there's 10 different ways you can share documents. But given that we have some members of this committee on Google because they have school email addresses, then we have some that are on Outlook through the town side. And then obviously we have third parties that are involved. We're working through how we communicate internally too, without obviously violating open meeting law, and making sure that the documents are not, 10 attachments down in an email, and that we can easily refer back to them as we go forward. So simple things like meeting minutes, obviously more advanced things like obviously the RFS proposals, Jim, that have, right? Those we're going to maybe have to refer back to, with whatever the selected designer is. And so we are working through that too. It is a logistical challenge, and we'll talk a little bit about that under other business of how we're going to calendar meetings moving forward as well. So just something more to come. I'll just say that the school administration team has been incredibly helpful there. And Jim, I think to the extent your team has feedback on how you've seen this work with other districts, obviously, especially how close our school and town team are working here and the cross representation we have, we're certainly all ears, because it's not, I don't think there's an easy answer. There's certainly an answer, but we're just trying to make it as efficient as possible. All right. Any other comments on subcommittees before I move on? Is there any public comment tonight? Okay. So meeting schedule. Designer selection already outlined when you're meeting next, and I think you have a solid schedule between now and December 5th. Finance subcommittee. Kathy, do you have a date yet, or you have really no need to meet at this point?
We do. We're going to meet November 9th. We've set a date to meet that corresponds with the issuing of at least Danska's invoices, so we can get those approved timely. So that seemed to work with what Jim and Jessica said their schedule was. So the next one is November 9th, 7 p.m.
Great. And now that the press release is available, at least in draft form, the communications subcommittee will hopefully meet in the next 7 days here, subject to posting requirements to get that out.
Just a quick note on the finance. We kind of penciled in the second was it Tuesday or Wednesday?
That was Thursday.
We said
Thursday.
November 9th.
November 9th. No, and then we said we
That's a
would
Thursday.
do the second Thursday of every month. We kind of penciled that in. Just so that we're meeting every month and we can properly look at any invoicing that comes through.
Okay, so it sounds like you're going to be on a regular schedule. Obviously, designer selection has a schedule, and then I think communications will hopefully get on a regular schedule once, but we also are going to need to act on short order in some other instances when there's other items that come up that we maybe aren't aware of that need to be communicated. So with regards to the full building committee, Jim, is there going to be any actions required of the full building committee related to designer selection? Or is it
Not until after the designer selection panel and after the fee negotiation. Once that fee negotiation is complete, based on our thresholds, the full building committee is going to have to approve their fee.
And I think even if we didn't have thresholds, it's probably one of the most important decisions. We also said the hiring of the OPM was also one of our important decisions we've highlighted to date. So we'll convene. So I guess just looking at the calendar, that sounds like it's going to get very close to the end of January, end of December, depending on how fast those negotiations go.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the schedule now. Yeah, we're looking by the middle part of December, prior to Christmas, having that finalized. So having it finalized by December 18th is when we would like to execute the contract with the designer.
So you need to have a building committee meeting before then?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Looking at the wrong month. So the 18th is a Monday, so that's when you want to execute it.
Yeah, and I mean, if we were to vote it on the 18th, then we could execute the contract on the 19th. I think we're okay there. We just wanted to stay away from, because once it gets into the latter part of that week, you're into Christmas and quorums, and it'll be challenging. So we definitely just wanted to target the 18th for that reason.
But your intent would be with firm number one that comes out of the MSBA meeting on the 5th, you would start negotiating with them theoretically the morning of the 6th or somewhere soon
Yeah.
after.
Yep, immediately after. Yep.
Okay. I would like to suggest we pencil in the 18th. And I'll send it, I'll talk about the communication around meetings in a second, but that gives ample time for negotiation and back and forth, unless, I mean, last time I tried to set a meeting, there was a big school meeting. So I don't know. I'm looking at the school administration. Does that work for your team or some subsection of your team? Like, we're not going over a school committee meeting or anything like that.
That works.
Okay. Are there any strong objections from any members that are here tonight on that date?
7:30.
Yeah, and it would be virtual. All right, let's plan on that. Then, because I don't think we want to rush that. Jim, it's not on the agenda, but I think we should think about if this committee should be voting at some point on who would represent the district to negotiate with you, or is that something you completely do and bring back to us?
We'll typically go back and forth with them and get to a number, and then present it. If we stay within the framework of the subcommittees, we could first have it approved by the finance subcommittee, the fee itself, and then have the finance subcommittee recommend approval to the full committee. Just to add, not to add another meeting in there, but just to stick with the framework of the threshold approvals.
Okay. Anyone have any objections to that? And obviously, if something goes sideways, we'll just call a meeting in between and figure something out. Okay. All right. So then, Greg and his team have been incredibly supportive on the organizational aspect of this. So obviously our OPM team doesn't have the ability to post meetings on our behalf with the town clerk and do all the other fun that any of you that are on other committees know that goes into planning and coordinating meetings, invites, Zoom links, all that stuff. So we will be disseminating, once we finalize it, a plan of, Kathy, you need a meeting posted, like what steps you need to do, but basically it should be very seamless and easy for you. And the school administration team is going to take, and Mariana Silva is our direct contact that we'll be working with in the school department to help with posting the meetings, getting the link set up, calendar invites sent, so that there's really no burden on the subcommittee chairs as well. It's likely that those will not go through the town's Zoom infrastructure. That way we don't have to have 10 people knowing how to log into these meetings and run them. I think we do have, Andrew, technically you could do it for the finance subcommittee, and I can technically do it for communications. So we do have options, but we're just trying to figure out a way to streamline it. The full Neary building committee meetings, though, will continue to run through the town format so they can auto post it, etc. So stay tuned on that, but I think a big thank you for helping us on that, because it only takes a lot of time just to pull for meetings, especially kind of the ad hoc meetings that aren't on every second Tuesday of a month or whenever you're planning to host them.
So Mariana, going forward, is going to help the 3 subcommittees organize their meetings, do all the posting, get the recording set up, etc.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
and
obviously have
you're
the
going to
minutes.
officially tell us that, how to reach out to her, because our subcommittee is going to come up pretty fast.
I mean,
I think
I mean, it's not that much. I mean, we're pretty good at doing the usual method. I mean, I just want to make sure the video is still on YouTube and all that stuff, right? But
I would
Sure.
say, and you know, I don't, this is, given who's on our subcommittee and what they're used to doing, it really wouldn't be hard for us to keep doing what we're doing if it would take a little load off her. But if you wanted to be consistent and go through her, that's fine too. But Andrew knows how to run Zooms. I know how to post meetings. But
Greg, you're listening. I'll let Greg's listening to the feedback. I'll let him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of the meeting platform, so we were experimenting today using Google Meet. I don't think it's going to allow us easily to do what we need to do and would require some retraining. So if there is a subcommittee member on each subcommittee that could launch and run a Zoom meeting, that probably is the easiest tool to use. What Mariana will do is poll, schedule, set the meeting date, post meetings, get the meeting links from the town, and conduct and coordinate all of the logistical aspects of your meetings. So I do have a draft document that I will share with Jason in the morning about how to do that, what information she'll need in order to do that work, which then should allow each subcommittee to move forward.
that sounds good to me.
I mean, I'm okay with, you know, hosting the Zoom meeting. You know, that's not an issue. I don't think I think I'd request some assistance in posting the meeting, but, as far as actually, the process of running the meeting, I'm fine with that for the designers.
Your
selection
tenure will be
subcommittee.
short-lived on there.
I'm sorry?
That's a short-lived committee, so we can get you the access credentials offline, Roger. I think you'll be good to go. So Andrew,
Oh.
you'll take finance then.
Yep.
Roger will take.
So if I botch a meeting, I'm basically botching a very high percentage of the opportunities I have to do this, right? That's what you're saying? Okay.
But
Pretty much,
Roger,
yeah.
if you can't get it started, you could text Jason and I, and it's not very hard
Yeah.
for just to
I
start
mean,
it.
much like last week, I logged in for a minute, got you going, gave you all co-host, and off I went.
Yep.
And I'll handle communication. So thank you, Greg, again, and your team. And we greatly appreciate the support there. All right. Any other business that anyone wants to conduct tonight? Go ahead, Greg.
Jason, just and Jim, this is for you. Just if you can get us the name of some of those website designers who that'd be helpful so we can start that process.
Yeah, I apologize, Greg. That fell through the crack. Yeah, I'll get you a couple of those. Yep.
And then Mariana will also be responsible for keeping the website updated with key documents and information, working closely with the communication subcommittee.
Okay, kind of to that end, Jason. And we can pick the best timing. It's nothing that has to be done, you know, in the December meeting, but I would definitely think, you know, January, February. In most districts, we've had a representative from the Massachusetts Office of Campaign and Finance come in and do a presentation to the building committee, just so that everybody has a clear understanding of what can be done and what can't be done, because ultimately this is leading up to a vote on a potential project. It's they do a really good job, kind of, you know, an overview of the do's and don'ts. So you know, it's usually about a 20-minute presentation. And I think it would just be very helpful, just to make sure that we're staying within the rules, obviously. Because some of it's pretty obvious, some other stuff definitely is a little bit more confusing. So again, we can chat about exactly when that timing is, but I definitely think it's a really good value add for everybody.
I think sooner the better, just
Okay.
so don't have any mix-ups at any point.
Yep.
So we can decide, depending on the contract, right? That's a pretty loaded decision that night. That's probably not the right night, but
Mhm.
we can also find another night before that or right after that in the new year to conduct that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll start to coordinate that and see what the availability is from that office and go from there. Okay.
Sounds good. All right. Any other business? All right. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Mark,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Roger,
aye.
Kathy,
Hi,
and I am I as well. Have a good night, everyone.
bye-bye.